Greetings. Welcome to Queen L LLC. This is Queen L. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today's video is regarding our upcoming Venus retrograde. It is in the sign of Leo and it's taking place from July 22nd through September 3rd. So we have been in the shadow period for Venus retrograde since around June 19th. If you're wondering what a shadow period is, I will link the video above that I posted with regard to the Mercury retrograde that we had a little earlier this year. The shadow period essentially is the time prior to and just after a retrograde or any transit really, where the energy is already starting to be felt. Okay, now the last time Venus was in the sign of Leo was in 2015. And so it's essential with regard to this retrograde, which is the time for us to reassess, reevaluate, and regroup. That with this one, it's essential to look back on the summer of 2015 and think about where you were emotionally, where you were in your life at that time, to determine if you have learned lessons since then, how you have grown since then. And that will help you to understand and appreciate what will take place with this retrograde. So Venus retrograde occurs every 20 months and it always is for around 42 days. Okay, and with this one being in the sign of Leo, the energy will be strongest for people who have their in their natal chart the Venus placement in the sign of Leo, as well as the other fixed signs. Now, I posted a video on the elements and modes of the zodiac signs and our natal chart, so I will link that above. Essentially, the elements, as you know, are air, water, fire, and earth. Leo is a fire sign. We know that Leo is a sign of leadership and a take charge sign. Very powerful, dynamic, in your face, wanting, to be noticed and the attention to be on them. So it's a lot of that energy. Leo being a fixed sign, our modes are fixed, cardinal, and mutable. The fixed signs are pretty known for being stubborn, set in their ways. The other fixed signs are Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And so those signs will feel the energy heavy as well. People whose sun sign is one of those signs, as well as anyone who, I would say sun, moon, or rising, but essentially sun signs. And also if your Venus is in one of those fixed signs as well. Now, a couple of the things that I would recommend to do during this time, because like I said, it will occur for approximately 42 days, so that's 6 weeks. It's just from this end of July through the beginning of September. Something to do is to, like I said, reassess, reevaluate the things that you enjoy, because Venus is our planet of love. It's what we enjoy. It's where we find beauty in life, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so that rings true here. Also, where you place value on those things that you enjoy, also representative of the arts and creativity. Something else for you to do during this time when there's a retrograde is to take time to focus inward. This is to our loving relationships will be impacted. Things may pop up from our past during retrograde. This is definitely not a time to start any new relationships, but I will get into that in a moment. So this is a time also to focus inward, to love yourself more, love on yourself more, nurture yourself, pamper yourself. Those any type of practices that make you feel, alive, make you feel beautiful. And this is not gender specific. It's everyone wants to feel, attractive and desirable. Then this is the time to do those things. And it truly has nothing to do with anybody else. It's about you loving yourself, nurturing yourself. Now, as far as the don'ts, like I said, it's mainly just not to start anything new. So that's the advice that we give typically for any retrograde. With regard to the Venus retrograde, this isn't really a good time to start a new relationship. It's also not a good time to splurge on any type of lavish expenses, or to make any big investments. Okay, so just avoid those if possible during this 42-day period of time. Next, there is some interesting Venus news with regard to your chart and where Venus is in your chart. It's a tip that I would like to give you. So we all know, well, we might not all know, but all of our planets have a placement in our chart. Okay, and by chart, I'm referring to your natal chart, and it's also referred to as a birth chart. Definitely pull your chart if you have not done that yet, and hop on this astrology train with me so that we can talk about all things astrology. So let's say you pulled your chart online, you know what sign your Venus placement is in your chart. Now, something that I'd like to share is you could be either a Venus morning star placement or a Venus evening star placement. And what do I mean by that? Not to go down too far down the rabbit hole throughout astrology. So we know that Venus is in our chart, right? You know that when you pull your chart, you see Venus. Now, depending on whether Venus comes, so if we're looking at the wheel, right? We start at the 9 o'clock point, and I'm not sure which direction I pointed in my other video. It was the wrong side as far as your perspective watching this video. But you look at the 9 o'clock point, which is where we start looking at our chart. It is the cusp of the first house. It is where our ascendant or rising sign is. That is considered the starting point of the natal chart. When you go around, you see that the houses increase in number all the way around to the 12th house, which, looking at the chart, it's right above the first house, over there near like the 10 o'clock point, right? Now, if you find where Venus is in your chart and also find where the sun is in your chart, so look for those two symbols. When you pull your chart, there's a legend that has the symbols of the planetary bodies as well as the names of them so that you can figure out which is which. The sun will be a circle with like a dot or a bullseye in the middle. Venus will be a circle with like a little cross underneath it. So that's the Venus symbol. Find Venus, find your sun. The next thing to note is the order of the zodiac signs. Zodiac signs run from Aries to Pisces. Aries is considered the first of the zodiac signs, and Pisces is considered the 12th. Okay, so that's the next thing to note. With that being said, when you find Venus and find the sun in your chart, then you can determine whether you were born as a Venus morning star or Venus evening star. For those who have the sun occurring earlier in the zodiac sign list and then Venus occurring after the sun, those are people who are known to have a Venus evening star. And what does that mean? Venus evening star points. Those individuals, their love runs as a deep simmer. They don't typically lead with their feelings. They possess feelings, but their feelings are a bit under the surface. They tend to, keep them under wraps, so to speak. And also when it comes to heartbreak, it typically takes them a bit longer to get over heartbreak before moving on. Now, for those who have Venus occurring in a earlier sign than the sun, and by earlier, I mean if your sun sign is Pisces and Venus is Aquarius, then Venus is occurring before the sun sign. So if Venus is before your sun in your chart, then you're considered a Venus morning star point. And what that means is it's essentially where Venus is in its cycle throughout its orbit, but this is the placement on your chart. Venus morning star point individuals are people who wear their heart on their sleeve. They lead with their feelings first before thinking, and lead with their emotions. They typically are hopeless romantics. They typically are not necessarily easier to get over heartache or heartbreak, but they're easier to bounce back and to move on. And so it's just a bit of a nuance with regard to Venus placement that I wanted to share with you. Now, as we're going through this Venus retrograde, if there are any aspects between Venus and other planets during that time, I definitely will mention them most likely in my weekly astrology video, but I wanted to share that information for you today. So I hope that that has been helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please mention them below in the comment section. Also, if you would like my expertise in analyzing your birth chart, then please use the link that is in the description box to book my services. Thank you so much for joining me today. Peace. Ashe.